Hello and welcome to Pots and Trowels. This week we're going to be pruning currant bushes. That's fruiting currants, black currants and red currants, and we're also going to be doing the winter prune on the wisteria. In the fruit cage here we grow gooseberries, red currants, white currants and black currants, and they're normally grown under protection, but we took the covers off a few weeks ago to allow the birds in so they can get any pests in there and get rid of them for us. We can do the pruning at the same time while the black currants and the red currants are dormant. The secret is making sure you remember that they both need to be pruned in a different way. So I'm just going to try and explain the differences between a red currant and a white currant, which are pruned the same way, and a black currant which is pruned in a different way. So we'll start with a black currant bush. What we want with black currants are these long new growths. These were made last summer, and these are the growths that will produce the fruit for us next summer. So it's really important when we prune at this time of the year, we cut as little of this off as possible because it's really needed. What we can do though, if we look down deep into the base of this plant, we can see that there's some old woody growth in there. And this piece here, for example, has got very little in the way of fruiting wood on it, and it's quite congested there and it's rubbing against this one. So what I would do in the winter is to take out one or two of these old woody shoots as close to ground level as I can, and I can see down there are some dormant buds. So if I cut this off down there now and get rid of that completely, what will happen is in the spring new shoots will grow and we'll get more of this lovely growth that will then fruit the following year. So again, there's a dead gnarled woody piece in there that's doing no good. It's been pruned down a few years before, but it's just going to rot. So I'm going to try and get my secateurs in there, or pruners rather, take that out. And then there's a piece at the back of it, if we can get in there. Sometimes it's difficult to get in, but prune in there and get rid of those. So already, just by taking those stumps out on this old piece, it's opened it up. And another one that I don't like the look of is this one here. Again, there's very little fruiting wood on it. So if I can get in at the back here and cut that down, that again will then encourage some nice new growth in the spring to grow up. So the rest I can leave. Any little dead bits I'm going to take out. I've just spotted a piece in there that is dead, which we don't want. This piece here, so that can go completely, but the rest of it can stay. It's fairly nice and open. All this will fruit, and then next year when it's fruited we take this out, but in the meantime we've got nice new growth from the base. So that's the black currant, which is pruned separately. So we'll now look at the red currant and the white currant, and if we look at this one just here, I'll take my pruning tools because we're going to do a little bit more pruning on this one. We can see with this one it's a much bushier plant. Unlike the black currant where we're getting all the growth coming from the base, this one has got a much more of a structure to it, this old branch system. And we want that to a certain extent on red currants and white currants, because what happens is we want to create this twiggy branch work, and it's on these little short branches that we get the fruit next year rather than the big long ones. But having said that, it is getting a little bit congested and woody in the centre, so I am going to do a little bit of thinning out with it. So again, using the pruners, this piece here is getting quite big, so what I'm going to do, in fact the secateurs will do it, is to take that out there and give that a good cut through there. We want it to be open. We don't want it to be so congested that the fruit doesn't get any air circulation in there, and we can take one or two pieces off. So once we've done a little bit of thinning out of some of the older wood, then we can start we can start to thin out a little bit. This piece here is growing into the middle. In fact, that's a horrible old gnarled branch there that I think we could get rid of completely. The good thing about all currant bushes is if you cut a branch out at the base, it will always get rid of that stump first. You cut a branch out at the base, it will always encourage some new growth to replace it. So we can take that piece out there. Okay, so that's opened that up a little bit more, and I might take one of these out here with my pruners. So that's sort of opened it up a little bit to start with. So already by taking those 3 branches out, I've got a lot more air into it. And then, using my secateurs, this was last year's growth. And if we look at some of these older ones, if we look lower down on them, these little fat buds here are going to be our fruiting buds for next year. So these are all in clusters. So we don't need all of this top growth and this tall growth here. So what I can do with these is cut them back by about 2/3. So it's just a case of going over the bush. Any dead bits we take out, cut them to a bud if you can. If they're getting too tall, just knock them back a little bit. But it is literally a case of going over the whole bush, smartening it up, pruning it back, dead bits out continually as we go round it, shortening these here. So it really is that simple. And that means that we then get lots of these little short fruiting spurs. Take that one out down there. Work away into the middle. Again, there's a bit of dead on there, so we would always take any dead out. Shorten those off, that dead stump. So what will happen over the next few weeks, the fruit buds will really now start to form. I'm just shortening these again. So it's just a case of getting a bit of a system and going around it.
When you say it's dead, Mark, how do you know it's dead?
Right, that's a good question. Because it's got a very dark brown, dry look to it. So for example here, so that is the bark has come off and it's really dry. If I scratch a healthy piece, it's green underneath. So, but I can tell by the look of that it's dry and brittle. So that would need to be taken out back completely. Very often you get a situation like this one here, where we've got a little side shoot which we could take out altogether, but we've got little dead stubby bits there. So you could either take the little bits out, or in this one I'm going to take the whole piece out just to open it up a little bit. So it is literally just a case of going around, and once you've identified dead and you know what it looks like, it's much easier the next time. So take that down a bit so we can see we are taking, it looks like we're taking quite a bit off, but most of it is either dead, crowded, or what I'm doing is just shortening last year's new growth, which we can tell are a paler colour. I'm trying to do it so we can see what it looks like when it's finished. So you've got to remember what it looked like before though, of course. Any bits in the middle we can just reduce out. So we've got again an open centre in there. And that's pretty much it really. It doesn't really need much more off there. We've reduced the bulk of the growth in there. We've taken out some of the old gnarled shoots from the base, so that opens it up and will encourage new growth. Then what I'll do next year is probably take 1 or 2 more of these older ones out, because we've got replacements. But unlike the black currant where we want all new strong growth, with this we want these short twiggy bits on the top. So that's it. Next year we'll get a really good crop of fruit on it. Well, back in late summer we pruned the wisteria that we're training up the front of the house, and we cut off all those long whippy growth. And I said you can, if you want, prune again in the winter, and the time to do it is usually January, February time. You don't have to if you don't want to, but what I've done is left quite long stumps on there, so I really need to shorten them a little bit. So when we pruned in the summer, these were the long whippy growths that we've shortened back. So what we need is to shorten them just a little bit more so we can get these short stumpy spurs, and that's where the flowers will develop later on in the year. So it really is a case of working along the branches, and where we've got stems that are maybe 4 or 5 inches long, we're just going to shorten them back a little bit to 2 or 3 buds. So it really is very simple. This one, there's a bud at the back, we'll cut it back to there. That one's okay. That one we can cut back to a bud there. This is quite a long one just here, so where we cut it off, so I'm just going to cut that back to there. So it really is just a tidying job as you go along, taking any long bits off, and then we'll get the lovely racemes of blossom there from May through till June. While you've got your ladder out, spare a thought for house sparrows. Lovely chirpy bird. Used to be lots about, but the population's dropped by about 50% over recent years, partly because we don't have winter stubble in the fields anymore, but also because the nesting sites have gone because of modern roofs. So if you want to encourage house sparrows into your garden, which eat loads of weed seeds and insects, consider putting up a house sparrow box. They live in communities, so the idea of this is, instead of it being a single nest box, there are 3 nest boxes. It's not even a semi-detached, it's like a terrace of sparrow houses there. One in there, one in there, one in there. Needs hanging fairly high on a wall, but not this wall. This is south facing, which is ideal for the wisteria, but it's going to be too hot for the sparrows. So it wants to be north, east or west facing, just below the gutter. They will find it and they will live in there happily for years and years and years. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed Pots and Trowels this week, and it's going to encourage you to get your secateurs out and do a little pruning this coming week. We'll be back of course next week, but in the meantime, share the videos and tell all your friends about it. Thank you and goodbye.